They're in covert operations. So I have to ask myself, is this even a legitimate couple? Look at Ted Olson. Would you marry Ted Olson? Who knows? Maybe he's a charmer. But then again, Ted Olson gets on television. He says his wife, Barbara Olson, called him twice, and it was cell phones at first. Believe me, I have those clips from 9/11. I've been through the archives of all the major networks on 9/11, and the 2 days after, went through them for Loose Change, and of course, Fabled Enemies, my last film. And this is just propagated throughout the day. Each network must say it 36 times during the day. They show her face constantly. And she is the basis. Again, she is the basis for the box cutter claim. And let's not forget, although we couldn't find a plane in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, couldn't find the plane there. Where's the plane? Oh, I don't know. What did we found? We found a red bandana, still folded, no blood, no head attached, that supposedly the hijackers magically wore. No plane, no burn marks on this perfectly folded red bandana, but this is the evidence that the hijackers took over the plane with box cutters. Now let's get to some of these detractors, because they did interview Popular Mechanics. But Popular Mechanics just goes to their baseline of lies that have been debunked over and over and over again. And that's why when I debated them on the 5th anniversary of 9/11 and annihilated them, they never did a debate after that again. So let's go to this clip of Jimmy Liar Meigs, the ex-editor-in-chief over at Entertainment Weekly. That's where I like to get my news from, Entertainment Weekly, lying to Bob McEwen on CBC's The Fifth Estate.
Of course. It is hard for mere laymen to understand how the biggest, most extensive military in the world could not have got fighters in the air that morning faster than it did.
You know, it's really interesting. The conspiracy theorists, one of the very common mistakes they make is what I call the myth of hypercompetence. They've seen too many movies. They have this idea that the minute a plane goes off course, 3, fighter jets are scrambled on its tail within seconds. It doesn't actually work that way. They're assuming that the air defenses were competent to fight this kind of threat. They weren't. They should have been better prepared for it. They should have thought about it. They should have trained for it.
But they do train for it. That's all they train for.
Not for planes originating inside the U.S. The air defense system was set up for outside threats, planes or missiles or other things coming in from overseas.
Yeah.
Let's stop it right there. Let's stop it right there. A complete and total lie. NORAD exercises, the FBI's own documents. Amalgam Warrior, April 14th, 2000. Inside hijacking, inside the United States. That's not an outside inside, it's an inside inside. Crew member hijacks an air transport loaded with stingers to sell to Central American Contra faction. Crew members will convince hijacker to give up. And it's F-15s from Portland and F-16s from McCord will shadow this exercise. Right here, 4/19/2000. What do we have? Crop duster chemical incident. Inside hijacking. Oh, look at this one. Amalgam Virgo. And on the other side of this, we are going to play a section out of the Warnings and War Games chapter so you can further understand about these war games. Amalgam Virgo, suicide mission. Suicide mission! Inside. And the second part of that exercise that never took place, we're going to have FBI agents openly hijack a plane and land it in a secured location. Read the documents yourselves. They put these out there. I didn't write these documents. I didn't just pull them out of a magical hat with a rabbit, folks. This is the real deal. This is the public record. And Jim Meigs gets up there with a smirk and acts like we weren't competent on the morning of 9/11 and says we never had any drills for inside the United States having a hijacking. All lies to be proven false right after this on the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com. We are back live. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. Now we're going to go to my film, Fabled Enemies. We're going to play half of the section of Warnings and War Games just to show what a dirty, filthy, inconsiderate, inconceivable liar Jim Meigs and Popular Mechanics really are. Then we're going to go to your calls in the next segment, 888-201-2244. That's 888-201-2244 or 512-646-1776. Here is the second half of Warnings and War Games, the War Games part.
It was so well known that the United States had done several drills with this exact scenario prior to 9/11.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at another example of where, despite the conventional wisdom, there were people in the United States who actually were preparing to defend against the kind of attacks which occurred here on 9/11. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD for short, has been defending the skies over the U.S. and Canada for almost 50 years, 46 to be precise. USA Today reports that in the 2 years before the attacks on September the 11th, NORAD conducted exercises using hijacked airliners as weapons. And one target was the World Trade Center. Here's ABC's Brian Ross.
President Bush has said again and again that no one could have imagined what Osama bin Laden ordered for September 11th.
We knew he hated us. But there was nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government, that could envision flying airplanes into buildings on such a massive scale.
But that turns out not to be true. U.S. military planners did envision and practice those very scenarios.
All right, let's just stop it there for a moment. Now, that's the main line, Peter Jennings, 2000, and I want to say that came out in 2004, 3 years after the attacks, because it took 3 years for them to even admit that Bush had lied, and so did Condoleezza Rice when they said they had never, ever, 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 ever expected a hijacking to take place where they would ram it into the World Trade Center or Pentagon. Yet they had drilled both scenarios prior to 9/11. And again, the excuse that Meigs makes, that they were just, it was only outside the United States that NORAD worked. The documents are in front of me, right here, right now. And guess what? That's not the case. They had inside hijackings. And let's continue with the clip to prove so.
North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, conducted exercises with fighter jets, simulating hijacked planes flown into the World Trade Center in the 2 years before the attacks. Pentagon planners also envisioned the attack on the Pentagon 5 months before it happened.
One of these drills was run on June 1st and 2nd of 2001. Amalgam Virgo was an exercise where multiple attack scenarios would be occurring simultaneously, including attacks from cruise missiles, unmanned aerial vehicles, and hijacked aircraft. The scenario also envisioned a hijacker taking control of a commercial aircraft and slamming it into the nation's capital. The exercises would constantly be monitored by military satellites and planes. Osama bin Laden was the poster boy for this plot, appearing on the cover.
Isn't it a fact, sir, that prior to September 11, 2001, NORAD had already in the works plans to simulate in an exercise a simultaneous hijacking of 2 planes in the United States?
Colonel Scott, do you have any data on that? I'm not aware of that, sir. I was not present at the time.
That was Operation Amalgam Virgo.
Yes, sir.
So what did happen on 9/11? The truth is, there was a lot more going on that day than we were.
All right, let's
told.
cut it right there. We kind of segue from there. But on the other side of the break, we're going to go to your calls. But I'm also going to play the clip of the cover-up. So you can see Commissioner Max Cleland go wild and say it's a scam. They're selling a scam to the American public. So you can see the look on Joe Biden's face when he has to admit the Pakistani funding of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And then he has to say it's classified. This is our current vice president, folks. Guess what? He's part of the power structure. He's part of the left cover that they love so much. Joey B. He's like a gangster. And he's one of the more likable gangsters out there. But you don't see him coming to the forefront now as the vice president to say, hey, we've been lied to about 9/11. We do need a new investigation. We should be going after the people in Pakistan that funded these hijackers, because he knows damn well that the ISI funding the hijackers really means covert Western intelligence, because this was an international intelligence op. They had the CIA over in Saudi Arabia training them, bringing them through the visa departments here, protected from able danger in the FBI. It's unbelievable, folks. We'll be back after this. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. PrisonPlanet.tv, InfoWars.com.